Okay. Hopefully, just leave it a couple of minutes for some people to join. So sorry if you can hear my printer in the background. It is whirring away. So just give a couple of minutes for a few people to join. And we'll get started in just a minute. Okay. I've hopefully given that enough. For a few, yeah, there's a few of you there. Okay, brilliant. Okay, cool beans. Hello. Hello, peoples. Right. Okay. So tonight's I'm going to talk about autism and the spiritual meaning of it. And it kind of does, although it's a heavy topic, and last month was a heavy topic as well, they do kind of lead on from each other. And the reason why they lead on from each other is because when we were talking about the whole thing about genders becoming one, because of the way that the brain's changing, when we look at people with autism, they're part of that new wave of people who are coming through. And the other thing that I want to mention is that I think that actually there's always been a high percentage, relatively high percentage of people who probably would be classed as being on the spectrum. And I think that we have lived in a society which has been very regimented, which has been very static, where there have been rules of engagement, rules where you would speak to people in a certain way. Society had so many rules. You think about the Victorian era, and so a lot of people were able to quite easily function within those rules. I know what the rules are. As an autistic person, I don't need to try and guess somebody's body language or try and work out socially what's going on. The rules are there, and I think that a huge percentage of people would have been classed as being born criminals who we might as well just package them all off now. And this sort of attitude was still prevalent in the sort of 70s and through to the 80s. If anyone ever gets a chance to watch, I think it's called Criminal Minds, an American show about when the FBI actually introduced profiling. And the attitude was that people were just born bad. And so I think that a lot of people were written off who were autistic as just being no-hopers, stupid, and that type of thing. So that's my honest belief, is that there has been a lot more autistic people about for a lot longer, and we just haven't realised it. And I'm approaching this as somebody who has worked with quite a few clients who are on the spectrum and who has a son who is on the spectrum. So that's the angle that I'm approaching it from as a therapist and as a mother. So hopefully that will ring true with some of you out there. So the other thing that's worth mentioning is that we don't live in a very natural world. The world we live in is very unnatural. Sarah Ahmed, am I a scientist? No. I wish I was. Hello, Adriana. So the angle, sorry, so let me just get back on track. So we are living in a very unnatural society. So society that we're living at the moment is really, really unnatural. And autistic people, as far as I'm concerned, are highly sensitive people who really struggle to cope with modern society. And for many of them, they end up having to retreat or feel like they're having to retreat back in on themselves. And they are here for very many reasons. And the first I'm going to talk about is their sensitivity and their high energy. So autistic people come in on the very sensitive, and which is why they're so truthful, so honest when you speak to them. As somebody who's sensitive myself, it's very easy as a sensitive person, as an empath, because you feel the impact of your words on other people, to try to be a people pleaser, to try and do things that people aren't upset or you don't hurt anyone's feelings. And that can, for many of us, become really toxic. That can be a really toxic situation to be in. So okay, so the other thing is that because of the toxicity, you end up sometimes retreating from society and moving back from society, and that's not what we want to do. We want to be moving into society and actually helping other people come forward. And in doing so, what we're doing is actually moving society along and moving society forward. So what you've got with many autistic people is autistic people who see the world very much in black and white, who see things as being very straightforward. And this can sometimes give them difficulties in terms of maybe being a little bit too rigid in their thinking with the black and the white, which is why they're quite often born into families, or they're around people who come more in on the empath vibration to try and give them the balance that they need to in terms of understanding their emotions and understanding their ability. So they're looking for a set of rules, very black and white rules, from which to view the world. And if anyone is part of my Wide Awake Club, where we're talking about the judgment at the moment and the big theme that's going on around judgment, then one of the biggest people who step forward with speaking their truths at the moment is Greta Thunberg, and she is on the Asperger's spectrum. So she is, again, somebody who very much talks in this black and white way, where she sees what's going on and she's going to say what she thinks. So it's almost like the next generation of empaths, but coming in a very different way. So they're very sensitive souls. They're being born into a planet where actually the vibration should have been higher. The plan really wasn't for the vibration to still be as low as it is, which is why we're getting the kick up the backside that we are at the moment. So if any of you are kind of going through that energetic shift still, then this is the point that we're going through it. And what we'll also be doing is going through this big shift where we're getting rid of a whole load of rubbish, a whole load of people who are really negative, who you know, we just want to sort of move to one side. All of those people are coming forward, are being awakened, or I don't quite know what's happening. And if you go into the Wide Awake Club, I know a lot of the channeling that I'm doing is really sort of comes alongside that as well. But what we're doing is we're moving ourselves into a point in space where we've got no choice but to move forward. And a lot of the people that came with these very specific tasks, and these tasks where they knew exactly what they were supposed to be doing, are people who are on the spectrum. So people who are on the spectrum absolutely come in knowing what they are and they're not supposed to be doing, which is why they can be really belligerent about the fact that actually, I don't want to have anything to, you know, I don't want to have anything to do with you, you're immoral, so I'm not going to have anything to do with you. Why they would be really honest with people about how they feel about them, and also honest with society. So when you look at somebody like Greta Thunberg, who's doing absolutely amazing stuff in terms of, you know, she, for some reason, some people have got a real problem with it, and she's really getting under some people's skin. Good. I'm really, really glad she's getting under some people's skin, because actually what she's doing is moving society forward. So they're kind of like the next generations of empaths, where they're really emotionally sensitive, where they're very energetically sensitive. And what that actually means is that where they are so sensitive, they can pick up on people who are, you know, whose vibes are bad or in a really negative space, or who are really quite toxic very, very quickly. They don't want to be around those people, and sometimes that can have a really dramatic effect, which is why that they will find social situations difficult. They will find situations in schools where they're around a lot of other people difficult, because of all those other energies, which are really, really quite toxic and really quite difficult. So they'll be they're here to really help shift along and move us forward. So we're in a massive area of awakening at the moment, where people are really moving forward in terms of we've had this massive shift. So we had a lot of people come in terms of being conscious of themselves. And I don't necessarily mean having to have a spiritual connection, but being self-conscious, self-awareness and understanding of energy. And that kind of came in and around due time. We've had another massive shift again recently, and this is kind of going to continue until about January, where we're shifting a whole generation of people forward. And people who are on the autistic spectrum are really, really important in terms of that, because they're here to raise the vibration of the planet to a point where they'll find it easy to exist, where there isn't so many negative people around. But they're also here with this very black and white outlook on life, where they will absolutely be calling judgment and telling people exactly what they think of them. So it's the, like I said, the next step of the empath on the next vibration. And energetically, it's their energy's really, really very high. They're not as grounded as other people, and they're not meant to be. They're pretty much permanently connected, which is why that they can go off into these dream states, you know, almost these daydreams. This is why you've got people who, you know, they reckon that people like Albert Einstein was likely to have been on the autistic spectrum. And Tesla, I've done a lot of reading about Tesla, and I would say, as somebody who knows a lot of autistic people, he was definitely on the spectrum. Even things like, you know, the gravity guy, him, Isaac Newton, he is likely to have been on the autistic spectrum as well, when they look back and look at who he was and the way he was as a person. And really what that does is it brings us forward as a society, because these people are so fixated. They know exactly what they want to do, they know exactly what they need to say, and nobody's going to stop them saying it. So, you know, they are going to walk out of lessons or not study for lessons that they're not interested in, because they've got a very fixed idea. I know I've got a friend whose son turned around to teachers and said, at about, you know, 6 years old, but I'm not here to read. I've done reading before. I've done reading so many times. That's not what I'm here to do this time. And as a spiritual parent, she totally understood where her child was coming from. But obviously trying to explain that to a teacher is another thing. So it's fascinating where people on the spectrum are coming in and really moving society forward for this next stage, because we do need this black and white attitude towards life at the moment, because we are in such a position that we are doing such heinous things on a global scale, and it's okay. Apparently that's okay. This sort of stuff's okay, and nobody's doing anything about it. We're just all meandering along, doing our own little thing. And as people of my sort of where I come in from it on the empath vibration, you kind of come in on things from a sense of non-judgment, because you're looking at everything from everybody else's point of view. And particularly when you've been working with spirit a long time, or working with the universe a long time, or God, whatever you want to call it, when you're in that position, what you're doing is you're able to see everything from everyone else's position. And it kind of makes it a little bit difficult when you're trying to call people out on things, because you can kind of see everybody's side. When you've got this next generation of people who are autistic, they don't need to see any other side. They know what their personal truth is, and they're going to say their personal truth. So if they think somebody's an asshole, they're going to turn around and say somebody's an asshole. You know, that's bad behavior, that type of thing. That's what they're here to do, is to push us forward, because now is calling out time. This is end game now. This is absolute end game. We have made a massive mess of the planet. I think that's quite obvious, and we're still continuing to do that. We have, you know, you even look at the British hierarchy. You look at our the mess that has been made by our politicians over the whole Brexit thing, and the lies that have been told, and even things like, you know, the Prime Minister being called out as having tried to have made an illegal act. All of these things, it's judgment time, it's judgment call. And it's these people who are on the spectrum, who are autistic, who see it as black and white, who really are coming through, and they don't care. These children now are in their teens and their 20s, who are here to turn around and say exactly what they need to exactly who they need to, without caring, because things are seen in black and white. They are so sensitive that actually they will just remove themselves from society rather than feeling everybody else's bad vibes. So it's tough for these people who are on the spectrum at the moment. It's really, really tough, because society isn't easy and society isn't nice. But the other big job they've got to do, apart from calling society out and apart from giving us older ones the sort of kick up the bum that we need, is that they are also here to in terms of their intelligence and in terms of finding the answers. These are the people who know the answers. So you look at somebody like Tesla, for example, who refused to work with the USSR, where he was originally, and then he came over to America. He refused to work with the American government because he'd already learned that, you know, you give people tools and they'll use it for bad rather than good. And he also was really cautious about corporately who he worked with, because of the fact that he wasn't looking to make money. He was looking to give energy away for free. And he studied everything. He studied crystals and how their matrix worked. He studied how their energy worked. So all of the information we've actually got about crystals, and if you do any work with crystals and healing with crystals, a lot of what you know and what you study with is thanks to Tesla, is that he was constantly looking for alternatives. We've got this next generation who are coming through, and they're absolutely fixated on these higher meanings. They're coming through not just to give us a kick up the bum and to teach us how to openly talk to each other. All of these years and hundreds of years, you know, maybe even a couple of thousand in some cases, of, you know, having to behave a certain way, and you know, bow down to the upper echelons of society and all of that stuff. That's going. Because it doesn't serve us. And I think very much in this country, in Britain, in terms of the government, and in terms of the fact that it's a Tory government who still seem to be riding high off of the whole posh thing, you know what I mean? Like all these Eton boys who aren't quite connected into society and who are just doing what they want and who are career politicians, that we still bow down to that to a great deal in this country. We allow ourselves to be manipulated by these people on a great scale. You know, you look at Nigel Farage, I know that he tries to appeal to the working man, but he's anything but. So these politicians who are career politicians, who aren't in the game for the right reason, and who are being shown for exactly who they are, because we're breaking away from all of these regimes that we have around us at the moment. So these are breaking down as far as we can possibly get them, in order for us to come through with a completely new new system with a completely new way of life. There's also something very karmic about Brexit, but that's a different discussion for a different day. This next generation are coming through who are on the spectrum, who are here not just to tell us and call us out on our rubbish, not only to show us how to communicate and how to be black and white with our own words when we need it, but they're also here to with all the to push us forward in terms of technology, and to push us forward in terms of thinking, and in terms of the way that we use our resources. So they're coming through with completely different ways of being, with completely different ways of thinking, and like I said, autism has always been around. So, you know, this, I remember talking to somebody who was, she was a scientist working in Southampton University, and she said, most of my team are on the spectrum. She said, most of them are. And she said, you know, it makes for very interesting team meetings and that type of thing. That they're here with a mission. They don't necessarily need to say please and thank you. My son never says please and thank you, and it's not for want of me saying, sweetheart, can you say please, or remember to say thank you. It just isn't there, because he's very functional. He thinks very functionally, and actually his please and thank yous are etiquettes. It's like they need to be said. Well, as far as he's concerned, they don't need to be said. He's grateful for his food. He's thankful that he spent the day with you, because he'll talk to you about it later. So it's these silly things that we've got our knickers in a twist about being polite and rights and wrongs, that they're getting rid of. And actually, these things where we are polite and we do things to please other people, actually we do need to stop doing those. There is a massive issue, particularly with women who dumb themselves down in order to make other people feel more intelligent, in order to make them feel brighter. It's fawning. It is what many of us learn to do, is to step back and not say anything, or I don't want to make that person feel stupid, so I'm going to dumb myself down and make myself look stupid. An autistic person wouldn't do that. An autistic person would say exactly what they needed to. And they're quite right in doing that, and they're quite right in showing us the way, because you shouldn't have to feel that you have to behave a certain way to make somebody else feel more uncomfortable. If you're more intelligent than them, then so what? You know, what difference does it make? That's not a judgment on the other person for being less intelligent, or for having less knowledge than you, or not being interested in a certain topic that you are. That's the beauty of the world, is that everyone is interested in different things, and interested in different ways of behaving, and different ways of being, and all of that makes up the rainbow and the colors and all the spectrum that is the planet as it exists. So for somebody who's on the spectrum, those sort of social things, the reason why they don't get them is because they don't make any sense. They literally don't make any sense. So we're kind of breaking away from that. So they're here to break us down on a whole load of levels, even those, like I said, those fawning things, and the need to say please and thank you, and be hospitable to people who, even if they're assholes, you know, rather than saying, do you know what, you're an asshole and I don't want to hang out with you, or, you know, you shouldn't behave that way, you shouldn't speak to people like that. And they come at it from a very non-emotional space, whereas I'm empath. And so if I come at things, I'm also an indigo child, so you're very much from the Michael vibration, which is that kind of wounded warrior vibration as well, where you end up saying something and having an argument. Well, an autistic person wouldn't have an argument, they'd be very logical about it. So it's understanding that they're here to show us this very logical way of being and this logical way of thinking. However, their energy is unbelievably high. So I was doing some healing with the kids, which I do on a fairly regular basis, where we're sat in my room just doing a few bits and pieces, and I said to my son, your energy, is it normal, or is it very high? How is your energy? Is it high? Is it low? How does it set? And he went, it's high. I said, so are you more connected up there, or are you connected down here? And he said, I'm not connected down there, I'm connected up there. And I said, okay. So the connection for them is very up. It's not grounded at all. And this is one of the biggest issues that they have in terms of dealing with other people, and in terms of understanding the physical and, you know, the need to work, to make money, all of those things that we think are really, really important are tied to money. They don't. They've got to do what they've got to do. And if each of us did what we were supposed to do, and we just did it off our gut instinct, which is how they work, then we would be living a life true to ourselves. So what they're showing us is how to be true to ourselves, and how to be true to our calling, how to be true to our gut instinct and our inner knowing, where you just know. So they're showing us how to do all of those things, and their connection is up. So they can't be grounded. They're not going to be grounded. It's not in their makeup. It's not in their matrix, because A, the energy is going to be coming up on the planet, and they'll find it easier to exist. But B, they need to give away all of these ties we have to possessions, and all of the ties that we have to money. So they're really changing us up on that. And the other thing is, I've gone off on a tangent, and I had put something else in my head. So they're here to do a huge amount in terms of bringing us through from that was the other thing. Okay, so I also said to my son, one of the theories I have is there's brachial. We have brachials, and brachial chakras they've only been associated with animals. I've been reconnecting to mine for a really, really long time, and for the past few years, and people have told me, no, that's rubbish, they don't exist, or what you're talking about doesn't exist, from people who thought they knew more than me. And it's becoming true and true that I know that these brachials have come back into my system. Maybe they never left, maybe we just weren't aware of it, but I'm very aware of the fact that I'm physical. I'm very aware of the fact that I'm a human being, and for me, having that balance of spirit and humanity is vitally, vitally important. As I've just said, somebody on the autistic spectrum, they're more connected up here. They're really not that bothered about the physical at all. So I said to my son, now the brachials, sorry, I'll explain a little bit more. The brachials are here to they connect us in on joy with other people. So in the same way that we get a positive connection through our feet in the earth, when our auras and this layer, this is what most of us would describe as the auric layer, where these come out, they help form, and it's about the fourth layer, and our aura is far, far bigger than that. But it's that sort of safety zone that we have when we think somebody else is in our space. The brachials form that space. So the brachials are kind of like our gut instinct and our inner guidance system and our inner warning system. So if you've got somebody who comes into that space who we don't like their vibe, then you're kind of throwing them out. And we're taught to override that gut instinct from a very, very young age. Go and kiss your evil auntie, even though you know she's evil, because that's what you're supposed to do. So you're taught from a really, really young age to override your gut instinct when it comes to people, and to do things even though you don't want to do them. So most people's brachials are knocked at quite a fairly young age because of that, whereas an animal who doesn't like somebody's vibe who comes into their space is automatically going to have their back up because they've got to protect their family. And equally when they're with their pack, and these help them bond as well. We're also very bad at bonding, particularly the British, you know, touching each other, quick pat on the back. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that mothers were encouraged not to have their babies skin to skin, not to hold their babies, and to leave their babies cry and things like that. So, and I think for the Americans as well, that's probably quite a big issue, less so for Europe, especially Southern Europe, where actually holding babies and that type of thing, it's completely different. So most of ours are kind of knocked and whacked out of where they should be. So I said to my son about his brachials, I said, these ones here, when we look at all of our energy centers and these ones here, how are yours? Are your ones okay? And he went, yeah. I said, are they too high? Are they too sensitive? Are they too low? What are they? And he said, no, they're fine. So but he's very aware he was far more connected up than he was down. His brachials and his guidance system wasn't too sensitive. It was just right. Now, there's a few thoughts that I have on that, is that it's just right for him because his energy is so high. Actually, he doesn't just want anyone in his energy. So it is very high. It also makes me think that his aren't necessarily out on the fourth layer, that actually his might be out on the sixth or the seventh layer of his aura, and his aura, he's using his full aura as opposed to us who are using the first 4 layers of our aura. So if anyone does Reiki healing, we're generally taught that to use the first 4 layers of our aura for healing, and that's generally the way that Reiki works. When you there's some of the stuff that I do and some of the way that I work, you're taking that out to the 5th, 6th and 7th layers because you're doing DNA work, which is actually physical work, interestingly enough, as well. So my feeling is that is his brachials here, but they're tightened up, or is it actually that he's using his whole aura because he is so highly connected? My thought is that he likely is using his whole aura, and actually his brachials are not in the 4th layer of his aura, but they're out on the 7th layer of his aura instead. So his aura and his guidance system is far, far bigger. So rather than you or I maybe being bugged by somebody standing maybe a couple of foot away from us and thinking, Jesus Christ, my energy's bad, whatever bad mood they're in, they need to go home and take that with them. Or, you might be quite, God, what's happened to them today? But obviously I'm approaching it from how an autistic person would ideally, interact with that, where they want to kind of stay away from it. An autistic person is going to struggle with somebody sat nowhere near them. So I know that sometimes if my son and my daughter share a room, she's very loud. If she's gone to bed and she's been very upset and she's been very stressed out and she's very outward, my son's very inward, he's very sensory sensitive, he doesn't want to be near her for ages until she's well asleep, and sometimes it can be hours because it's too much for him to bear to be in the same room as him. And when we spoke about these brachial energy centers the other day, it's making sense why his aura is so much bigger that actually he can feel her energy and her anger and her stress and all the rest of it from quite a long way away. So their energy system is a different energy system to ours. They are the next generation. For me, they're absolutely the next generation who are coming through, where they exist from a very logical, what seems like a very logical point of view, but actually it's not. When you look at the universe and the experiences that we have, the universe doesn't look at anything as negative or positive. The universe looks at our experiences as just that, experiences, and we take from those experiences what we want, but because we're humans, we put a slant on it and we'll think, oh God, that was an awful way to learn that, or that was a really positive way to learn that. And I'm all for learning positive lessons and learn lessons positively. I've had enough of learning lessons the hard way. So the universe will just look at experiences and give us experiences based on what it is that we're looking to do. And so yeah, it's an autistic person is going to be viewing experiences in the same way that the universe is, which is slightly more removed, slightly more logical. It doesn't mean they're not sensitive. It just means that they're using their tool in a different way. And actually, until we're all at least functioning on an empath vibration, they're going to generally struggle with a lot of people. Now we've got more and more people coming through understanding their emotions, not just understanding their emotions, but dealing with their emotions, dealing with their rubbish, going for therapy, going for counseling, going for Reiki healing, on their spiritual journey, on their healing journey, whatever it is that they're doing, unlocking themselves and making their lives better, and most of it is totally down to self-love, then they're going to find it easier and easier and easier to function in society, because we are at a point where this isn't just a trickle or a stream. This is, this is a great big huge, what, the rains come and then you see a little trickle, and then you see it on nature programs, and there's a great big cascade coming down the mountain. That's where we are, just dragging everything with it in its way. That's where we are. It's kind of unstoppable in terms of where we are energy wise and where we're taking everything forward. So it's really, it's just really fascinating where they are, that they are the next generation forward. We're going to be finding that they're going to find it easier to survive within society as we move forward, and as the generations move forward, and there's more and more people coming through on the emotional, on the empath vibration. We're going to be finding more and more people who are coming through on the autistic spectrum who will find it easier to function within society. They won't have the sort of misunderstanding that many children do, trying to make them do things that don't make any sense. So what if my son's fixated with the Virgin Skybox, with the Virgin, the little TiVo box thing, and all of the program, they changed the program. Why are they showing old ones of these, and why aren't these in HD? Now, okay, yeah, he might go on and on and on, but actually, really, is it that much skin off my nose for him to go on and on and on? For some people it is. For some people it's too much. For some people, the funny little ticks and noises and little habits and things like that are too much, are too annoying. And quite often those people may find that they're actually, you know, somewhere on the spectrum themselves. I mean, when it comes to autism, all of the attributes within an autistic person's personality are absolutely relevant with across the board. These are personality traits that we all have. They are just present in such a large extent with somebody who has autism that they often struggle on a day-to-day basis to function within society, and that's what makes somebody autistic as opposed to being neurotypical. You know, these people are going to be accepted more and more, understood more and more, and as they're accepted and as they're understood, they're going to find their childhoods are easier. They're going to be coming through to adulthood in a much calmer, much happier way, in a society which is much calmer and much happier. And as these generations come forward, they're going to find that they can be themselves and function a lot easier with their highly expanded aura. It will be very interesting to see how people like myself, who are very empath, who really do feel and pick up on other people's emotions, you know, sometimes I'm in a bad mood and I'm thinking, God, this isn't my bad mood, this is somebody else's bad mood, and then I know who I've been hanging out with, and God, I've got their bad mood. So I'll be interested to see where it goes. Are we all heading towards this autistic, more highly connected system? I don't know. Are we going to be mixed, where you've got people who are empath and people who come in the autistic spectrum? I don't know. It will certainly be like that for some time in the future, you know, within the next generation. That will generally be it. Long term, are we looking to be these higher beings with these higher energetic systems? Likely. So, you know, these children who are generally more sensitive to rubbish in the diet. So my son was sensitive to wheat because we've genetically modified most of the wheat we eat, which was a really good idea because there was people starving in poorer countries, so they made a really hardy wheat. The gluten content went up from about 15% to about 80 or 85%, and it's meant that people in really poor countries where the crops fail quite regularly, that they've had a really decent supply of food. However, because in this country, people don't want to lose a few pounds because supermarkets are so tight with the pricing on a few pence on their bread or whatever, they've switched so they yield a better crop. So it's for money making purposes, where actually if you go to a non-GMO wheat, you'll find that it will be much lower, which is places like Italy. A lot of the wheat is very natural wheat, very original wheat, which is why you'll find people going for spelt, even though it contains gluten, it actually has a far lower amount of gluten because it's an old grain. So like my son was wheat intolerant, dairy intolerant. We drink far too much dairy. It would have been a supplement to our food. You would have, you know, the goats, which is generally what we would have worked with. Goats would have, you know, because we would have been nomadic, moving around with a herd of goats. The goats would have had to raise their babies, and we may have got the odd glass of milk off the goat, particularly if times were hard, or you had somebody who was infirm, or you had a baby who needed bulking up, that type of thing. It wouldn't have been generally something that we ate, and we certainly wouldn't have been drinking cow's milk. Cows are huge, they have full stomachs, they process their food in a completely different way, and their hormones are off the scale as well. So it's, you know, even things like eggs, you know, a lot of children come through with egg allergies. The eggs are, chickens only laid seasonally. Now we're eating them the whole year through, living very unnatural, unhealthy lifestyles in terms of our diet as well. So a lot of these children who are more sensitive to all of these things. My son was as well, for a very good reason. So likely we are going to be getting rid of I think you know, it'd be interesting to see where we go. I can't tell you where we're going to go. My feeling is that we will have societies of empaths and I'm just going to have a quick look through the comments. Empaths and other people, empaths and autistic people. We really need to find a better word for autism as well, because people on the spectrum, I don't particularly like it. An empath sounds so pretty. So Heather has said, that'll be my boy. Black and White tells me we have a mini ice age from a very young age. Maybe this will be the winter. Do you know what? It wouldn't surprise me. Let's have a mini ice age. Let's freeze all the buggers out, Stephen. Heather, Love and Tesla. Jane's asking, does it mean he's finer attuned? Yeah, I think it does. I think he is finer attuned. I think that he's where we struggle to exist because of the dimensions, and our auras are linked directly into the dimensions, because a lot of us struggle to exist in the fifth dimension where there is no judgment. There is no judgment in the fifth dimension. That's the biggest thing that we need to understand. It's not about, going around going, oh, my energy's so high, I'm in the fifth dimension. That makes no difference. It's to do with you as a person and to do with your attitude. So you need to move past judgment. You need to move past seeing right and wrong, and you need to move past negative and positive and all of those types of things. So because a lot of us struggle with that ideal, he'll see things as being very black and white, and he'll just say what he needs to say, and he doesn't. Why would that cause somebody offense? Why would asking somebody why they look like that or what are they doing over there, why would that cause them offense? Because I'm not being offensive, I'm interested. What I want to do is I want to understand. And so they come at life very much from the universe's perspective. So my feeling is if they're working out in those higher layers of the aura and in those higher chakras, that they are more finely attuned, far more sensitive than the likes of you and I ever will be, because they're born like it. So actually the more healing you can do with them, the more you can help them, etc., the easier they'll find it to cope and to function and to be the beings they're meant to be. I've actually Reiki tuned my son, somebody's suggestion, and I was a little bit funny about it in the first place, but I spoke to him and it actually really helps him. So it's a tool now that he's got, and he's 7, it's a tool now that he's got to help himself and to heal himself. So yeah, it's where they're more finely attuned, they are gonna, I think he would have been channeling any energy anyway, which is why I think he finds it so easy to work with crystals. But yeah, interesting. Heather said she's thought some of this for a long time. She thinks they chose empathic parents as a part of the process. I think it's probably true. I think in order to protect them and to understand them and to be open to them, I think it's really important that they're with sensitive parents. I think it absolutely makes sense, because we do have to fight their corner sometimes when it comes to school and things like that. You do have to kind of go, have they made the right judgment call for my child? Are they looking at my child as the individual that he or she is? And all of that's really important. Are they making a fuss because my son's got a packet of tissues in his pocket, and still bugging me, packet of tissues in his pocket, and that's disrupting the class. Apparently it needs to be taken off him, rather than having a meltdown. Just let him have a meltdown instead. Let him just be stressed out for the rest of the day because he can't wipe his nose. That's really sensible. Reiki by Siobhan has said, it makes total sense. My daughter doesn't like someone who's always good. That is. They're complete lie detectors as well. I mean, Dylan's a dreadful liar is the other thing. He's the worst liar I've ever met in my whole entire life, because he'll sort of tell a lie really knowingly and he'll sit there like that. And it's normally about farting. It's that's generally the extent of it, or who ate the last such and such in the cupboard. And he can't. He's like, how do you know? I know that you're the worst liar in the world, and I'm so glad that you're a dreadful liar, because he doesn't get the social way of putting on a good lie. My other child, however, that's a different story. Heather's saying school was a nightmare, and I can imagine, particularly for you, Kieran, that was difficult because it's that older generation. So very much when you think about the first lot of children that came through with autism, and it was really quite strong, that they really chose a very difficult path, because they were there to be the first ones to break it all down. They were the first ones to really shake the system at its roots. So yeah, these children who really were the first ones to come through and have the extreme reactions that they did in order to back everybody's ideas up, means that other people can come through, other children can come through, and it can be easier for them. I've certainly found over the last, probably even over the last couple of years in particular with Dylan, it's getting easier and easier all the time. It's really all you have to do sometimes is just to say to people, look, he's on the spectrum. Yeah, no problem at all. And I remember once we were in an ice cream shop and he dropped his ice cream and he had a complete meltdown. I couldn't, it was a real struggle. And this was probably a couple of years ago. And this girl came over and said, oh, do you want me to do another ice cream? And I was like, yeah, can you? I was like, no, obviously half in tears myself, because he was so upset, he was so distraught. And I mean, genuinely, absolutely crying his eyes out over this. I mean, I remember being that age, and it's been devastating losing an ice cream. So you can imagine a Sunday where we built up a whole big day about going out and having an ice cream, just the two of us. And she brought it over, and I said, you know, I'm really sorry he's been so upset. As soon as she said she was going to get a new one, he really started to calm down. And I said, you know, but he's on the spectrum. And she's like, yeah, I guess, no problem. I thought, oh my God, yes, that's what I want. It's people like that. And every time you see a parent and a child's having a tantrum, and you might think that child's too big to be having a tantrum, the child may be very tall. I've got one of those. So please don't presume that they're 4, because they may well be like 3 or 2. And the other thing is, think about the fact that child may be on the spectrum. That child may not be able to cope. That mum or that dad may just need to go into the supermarket, into the shops, and the lights. I remember that even as a baby, the lights, and I think back about it now, all being too much. It was all overwhelming for Dylan, and he wouldn't sleep. We'd go to the supermarket and he wouldn't sleep. He wouldn't sleep afterwards. It would just be too much, and he'd get himself into such a state. And that was as a small baby, I remember that. So all you need to do as another person in society is be there to give a helping hand. Don't look on in judgment. Is there anything I can do? You know, trying to distract him, or even just saying, look, don't worry about it, it's okay, we've all been there, because we have all been there. And I have had full-out arguments with people in coffee shops who've decided to shout at my kids as I'm ordering coffee, because for the 30 seconds that I was ordering coffee, they decided to have an argument. And so, you know, I have had arguments with people, and it's interesting people's responses to those arguments, how many people come out and support you, and how many people go, well, you know, you don't want to listen to kids screaming. You live in society, so if, you know, a child makes a noise, that's going to happen. If you don't want to live in society, don't be in society. Go off, find a castle somewhere, move up to the Highlands and go and live there, because you know what, autistic children are children, and they're children who've got absolutely normal parts to their personality, who absolutely, there's nothing wrong with these children. These children are here to show us the way. So, you know, if people don't want to be freaked out by my son coming up and asking them what they're doing on their tablet because he's fascinated with technology, then do you know what? You shouldn't have your tablet out. You shouldn't be sat there on your phone. You should be interacting with society. And if it freaks you out that a 7-year-old has come up and spoken to you out of the blue, then Jesus, you know what? Get a grip, because there's worse things that happen in life. So they're here to change society. You know, my son doesn't understand why there's a rule, why he can't just go up and talk to a stranger. You know, which as a parent is quite worrying, but for him, you know, if somebody's got something and we're sat somewhere that's familiar and I'm happy with this place, why wouldn't I want to talk to the people that are in here? So, you know, that's where we are. The way that we move forward as a society is by supporting and helping other people, actively helping other people. And if you see a mother who's somebody's had a go at them or their kids, stand up for that mother, stand up for that father. If you see a child by itself behaving badly, ask them, are they okay? What's going on? Do they need any help? Because actually, do you know what they might do? Stuff like that is going to make the difference, but it's not going to start being done until we all join together. shopping still, he hates it and melts down. Yeah, do you know what? I get it. It's too much. The amount of times that I have had too much, particularly around certain hormonal times of the month, and just gone and sat in a supermarket toilet and waited until somebody else has finished their shopping and come out and met them, because it's just been too much for me. And Siobhan has said she's left the shop so many times. Siobhan, don't leave the shop. You're there to have an argument with the people. that would be me. You're there to say to them, and I can say that to Siobhan because I know her, you know, and I don't mean have an argument, but I mean, really, you know, if people aren't happy with the looks that they're getting, I will say something. Is there anything that I can help you with? Is there a reason why you're staring? You know, have you got anything to say, or would you like to help? Those are things that have come out of my mouth on several occasions, aka my gobby Irish mother just copying, you know. My mum's got some proper smart lines. I'm gonna have to learn some of them off her about people staring. But yeah, can I help you? Is there a problem? It's genuinely how I deal with it. So Jane has said that they're here for us to follow and not segregate them. Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's something that's come up before, is not segregating people off, that we would have just put everyone together off in another part of society and we wouldn't have seen them. And actually, there's nothing wrong with an autistic person. There's nothing wrong with them. They're perfectly normal. It's just that we're the weirdos. We're the weirdos. And I think that's the way we have to look at it, is that actually we're the weirdos. We're the devolved ones. We're the ones who aren't functioning as we're supposed to. They're coming in on a vibration where they're functioning exactly how they're supposed to, and they're showing us the way. And the sooner we can get our backsides in gear and start following the example that they're giving us, the easier it's going to get. So if anyone else has any questions, please ask. But I think I've kind of come to the end of it. Siobhan says she loves how her daughter talks to the trees, the moon, and her crystals. Yeah, because she recognises their energy. And actually, it's interesting because Alice said to me a few times recently she doesn't see rainbows around everyone anymore. So, you know, another parent probably wouldn't have picked up on that, but she said to me about 3 times. So she must have been able to see auras. So they can see the energy, they understand the energy in a completely different way. And if they want to have the conversations with them, then they absolutely can do. Although it does get on Dylan's nerves when I say you need to kind of program your crystal and tell your crystal what you want to do. And he looks at me like, what? It's my crystal. It knows what I want. Like, why are you telling me to tell the crystal what to do? Crystal knows what I'm doing here. Like, and he just does it just to shut me up with like, oh, okay, crystal, just do this. So, okay, that may well be it. If there's any other questions, quickly get them in. So what have we got coming up? Divine Service is on the 3rd of November, and we have on the 8th of November the next Friday Night Live. I don't know what topic I'm going to do for Friday Night Live on the 8th of November. Maybe a theme around Guy Fawkes, I don't know, around racism against the Irish, the Catholics, and the Gingers. That may well be a topic. It may well be a topic. I'll stop burning an effigy of somebody who's tried to start a revolution. Stop downtreading all the Celts. You watch, you'll be rising up again. And you watch. As I said, this is the British karma. Everything's going to be going over to Ireland, and all the times that the Brits have turned around and called the Irish stupid, they're the ones who are going to be absorbing it all. Just you wait and see. Just you wait and see. They will have their comeuppance. I tell you that for nothing. Siobhan said, "Oh, let's do judgments." Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe that would be a good topic. Judgments. It might be not directly judgments, but something around that whole judgment theme, and where we're going with that. That might be good. That might be interesting. But yeah, okay, something around the judgments themes would be good. Yeah, Siobhan, you know that the Irish and those of Celtic heritage are, you know, I can get an Irish passport, people. I don't need to worry about the about Brexit. So do my kids. My husband doesn't, so we'll be going on holiday without him. That sounds fabulous. Right, okay, I'm going because I don't know if you guys have got any more questions. Not a question, this is Emma, but I find everything so fascinating, just makes sense. Like that you have a matter-of-fact tone and don't talk like a fairy, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's called groundedness. Thank you, Emma. That genuinely means a lot. I know that I probably could portray an image that might, I don't know, but it's not me. I am just, the daughter of an Irish woman and of an English man. He lives in the south coast of England. That's just me. So I'm really glad that it resonates, because it is. I am just having a chat with you, and my belief is that we're all students and we're all masters. So we have all got something to teach everyone, and we have all got something to learn from everyone. So that's how I approach it. I approach that we are all teachers and masters in our own vein. I'm glad I've made you laugh tonight, Siobhan. I'm glad I've made you laugh. You know, Siobhan, exactly what I'm talking about with the whole Irish thing. And Jane, I will see you guys in the morning. Thank you so much, guys, for being with me. If you're watching this on catch up and you've got any questions or queries or whatever, please pop them on.